I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and this is Apostolicity. Today we're going to deal with the meaning of doctrine. Let's dive right in. When we look at the term doctrine from the book of Hebrews, chapter 6, verse 1, we find a very amazing and very interesting meaning that brings a totally different connotation to the word doctrine as it relates to the teachings of Christ. In Hebrews chapter 6, verse 1, we read the scripture in this manner: "Therefore, leaving the principles of the doctrine of Christ, let us go on unto perfection." I want to stop right there because the previous clause is where I'm going to extract the meaning of doctrine. The term doctrine is a very interesting term because it is the word that we call logos. And I want to pull it up on the screen so I can give you a reference to it if you so desire. It is the Strong's number 3056. We're going to be getting more into a lot of technical things because at this juncture I want you to begin to learn. Even though we have just a few minutes, I want you to learn and be able to extract some comprehensive considerations from the text. And so when we look at the term doctrine, it is the word logos. We find logos in the book of St. John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, or the Logos. The Logos was with God. The Logos was God. And so we go down a little further. It says, all things were created, or all things that were made by Him, in reference to the Logos. And so from this perspective, we see the Logos as the living Christ and also as the creative Word. And so when we look at the term logos, logos comes from a term in the Koine Greek, lego. And lego is a saying, or lego is a construction of words that have specific meaning. And so when we look at lego, specific words constructed that have a specific meaning, that's the root of the text, and we build from there. And so logos, something said, which includes the thought. And so from here we see that logos then is the revealing of the thought of an individual through speech. By implication, it's a topic, a subject, or a discourse. And so from here we see then that when we talk about the doctrine of course, it is his consideration of truth. It is his thought processes of what is vital to becoming saved, living saved, and maintaining salvation as a born-again believer. And so when we look at logos, logos can also mean computation or reasoning, the mental faculty. It can deal with the divine expression, or God divinely expressing himself through the manifestation of Christ. And so when we look at then doctrine of Christ is the consideration or the thought processes of Christ concerning what is true. And so from here there are 7 principles of doctrine, or 7 considerations that can be extended discursively or in a discourse that will elaborate on truth that deals with the relationship of Christ with man, deals with the perfecting or the maturation of man that comes through Christ. It deals with the operation in covenant or relationship or in the church through Christ. And so it's considered to be his mindset. It's considered to be the very truth or truths that God has constructed through Christ to bring us into a workable salvation, to bring us into a workable covenant, to bring us into a workable systemic methodology that causes us to mature and causes us to become age appropriate in handling the things of God. And so logos as doctrine deals with the discourse. It deals with the constructed truth of God that can be expanded into lengthy conversations, lengthy considerations, and lengthy teachings that ultimately will produce those who are disciple scholars. And so doctrine then is a lengthy consideration. Doctrine is also something that is discursive, and it can also be placed within distinct categories of specificity, categories of comprehension, categories that go just so deep that it typically gives you a lot of nuances and a lot of explanation. And so it reveals much more than principles or basics. It is the building upon basic statements to bring them into doctrinal treatises, doctrinal discourses that can be discussed over and over again, where we can then elucidate and pull out greater understandings of truth that will enable us to apply these things, not only just to bringing our mind to a point of growth, but these things become applicable in everyday life. So the doctrine is the mind of Christ concerning truth, concerning those categories or discourses that are to be applied in our everyday living. Again, I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves. I thank you for joining me. But this is all the time we have. Remember, all things are possible with Christ, with God. God bless you.